Welcome to Higher Learning. I am your host, Oz Rashid. This isn't just a podcast, it's a front row seat to how elite leaders build iconic teams. The kind of leaders who spot potential others may overlook, who build cultures that people don't want to leave, who set the bar and then raise it. Work and how we work is evolving at a rapid pace like no time in history. Our guests will give you insights on how to stay out in front when it comes to leadership management, AI, and developing the skills that actually matter. Whether you're a founder, hiring manager, or just obsessed with building the right way, this is your spot. First time here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button, drop a rating, and tell a friend who gets it. To our longtime listeners, we appreciate you. Now let's get into it. Today's guest, we have a very special guest. On today's episode, I'm joined by Nicki Leritz, a 20-year HR veteran who most recently served as the Chief Human Resources Officer for Pentair's Water Solutions segment. Before steering people strategy for Pentair, Nicki led global HR teams at Smiths Medical and Renewal by Andersen, where she modernized HR technology, built high-impact service centers, and guided workforce integrations during acquisitions and COVID-era turbulence. Today, she also channels that Fortune 500 know-how into People Solutions Hub, her boutique consultancy that helps small and mid-sized businesses level everything up from compliance to culture. Nicki's sweet spot is marrying human-centered leadership with data-driven HR operations, and I cannot wait to talk about scaling great cultures. So whether you're an enterprise leader or a scrappy startup, Nicki's here to help. Welcome to the show, Nicki. How you doing?
So good. Thank you, Oz. I'm really excited to be here and really talk about the landscape of talent, hiring, and everything that's going on in the business space today.
That's such a fun time, and there's a lot going on. And were you okay with the intro? Did we do good service to your illustrious and accomplished background?
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's always fun to hear it and reflect a little bit on what you've done over a significant period of time. So thank you.
You got it. We're grateful for you being on. So I want to start here. You worked in HR for over 20 years, as I mentioned earlier. You worked at Andersen, Smiths Medical, and then most recently at Pentair. I even see that you have some recruiting experience that you worked at Harvard Half at the beginning of your career. Let's talk about this. How did you first get into HR? Was it something that, you dreamed about when you were 8 years old, or was it something you fell into, something in between?
No, the funny thing is I wanted to be a veterinarian for so long and couldn't deal with having to put the animals down and kind of the sad part of it, which is a little ironic when I work in the field that I do because there's a lot of hard work that happens at HR. But it started out, I worked at Applebee's, so in the restaurant industry for 10 years during high school and college. It was at the point where I was going to go for my MBA right after undergraduate. And I decided that I really liked some of the aspects of HR, the training, the hiring, and developing people. And so went for my MBA and decided to pursue a concentration in HR at the time.
Applebee's, great restaurant. We're going to come back to that in a little bit. I'm interested, does having a customer service background, does that make you a better HR leader? Did you ever look for that quality when you're hiring people to bring onto your team?
It's funny that you asked that. I didn't realize early in my career how much that would help me and that it helped me get jobs and people really look towards it. So yes, it is something that I look for when I'm hiring people in certain roles, particularly in HR, if you have to work with the business or you have to work frontline with employees and managers, because we want to be a service-oriented function. Now that we don't want to have the hard conversations and we don't want to do the hard work, but I think there is something to be said about that mindset and how we approach the relationships that we build.
Yeah, I love that you said that because I, like you, I worked my way through college. I was working in restaurants. I was working at bars. I worked at Outback Steakhouse. I mean, I did kind of everything from busboy all the way up to bartender and server in between. And I remember I got some great advice from one of my managers at the time. He said that if you look at your section, your 4 or 5 table section as like your own little franchise, we offer the food, we offer the marketing, we offer the menu, but everything you make in tips is really up to the experience you create for the people within your section. And I remember he said that really resonated with me. And I remember that I always had this attitude of I had to earn people's tips. And that led to great customer service, which I think has really helped me when it comes to serving other people and creating a business that's as customer focused as it is. So I think that's a great quality and a really great quality in HR. There's probably some analogies with veterinarian and HR too, but we'll leave those alone for right now. Now, you were working in some of these really large corporate organizations, these enterprise environments, but now you provide fractional HR services. So I'm interested. This has been something that's been kind of the tip of everybody's tongue over the last 5 to 6 years. Fractional services, fractional HR services. I have some fractional people working on my team in different capacities. What would a company, if they're looking for a fractional HR services, like where might that company be in their company journey? And then I'm interested in the type of solutions that you specifically like to offer.
Yeah. So when you're looking at, do you need a fractional person, or why would you need a fractional person? Some of the needs are going to be around, I have compliance issues, inconsistent hiring, I'm seeing high turnover. I need to step up. Maybe I have a full-time person, but I want to bring a more strategic mindset to the work that I'm doing. I might be scaling my business. Maybe I'm growing. I might be going through some M&A work. Or unfortunately, I might need to divest or look at restructuring my business, and I need someone to help me work through that long haul of work. It's also a specific size of business. So you're looking for smaller businesses that usually need this. Probably anywhere from about 50 to 150 employees, usually is about that spot. Because you're looking for someone who can come in with 5 to 10 hours a week and help you with specific needs for your business to help you, like I said, with those priorities.
Love that. So if I was a business leader and I came to you and said, Nikki, I got a ton of turnover, right? What would be the first thing you think? What would be the first area you want to look at? Maybe a metric? Is there something what's the first thing you think of when I tell you I have high turnover? What are you trying to attack?
Yeah, I mean, if you have metrics, usually smaller businesses don't, but if you have metrics, I'm going to want to look at that specific turnover. Are you measuring what days, right? Are they falling off in the first 30, the first 60? What is that? Are you doing anything to measure engagement in your workforce? Again, smaller businesses, you're going to have to prioritize what you're doing. If I don't have any of those things available to me, I may say, can I do some focus groups with your current employees and understand what is the dynamic that we have going on here? It could be something around the culture. It could be just a specific leader. Maybe there's a leader who is really toxic to the organization. Maybe it means that the business is growing, but we're not scaling appropriately and everyone's really burnt out. And we need to make sure that we have the right technology and resources to support the scaling of that business.
No, fantastic. And I bet if that leader is the founder, that must be a tough conversation, or if it's the CEO, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I'd be interested to know is, like, have you walked into environments that maybe had some high turnover? And then what were some of sounds like you've got the assessment down. What are some of the things you've implemented in to kind of help make sure you turn it around, and maybe have a success story you can tell us about?
Yeah. Yeah. So one organization, what we found was high turnover was the scaling issue. So there was high growth, and the fortunate thing was the market was ready for the growth. The business was not, and because of that, people were super burnt out, and we had to go back and say, how do we build the right infrastructure here? So some of the things that we implemented were leadership training. We had leaders that weren't prepared to take on more. We had promoted people earlier that we maybe would have in the past and hadn't provided the right resources to them. We had teams that needed extra resources, and maybe we had planned in our planning process to say, like, we need to scale here quicker because this is where we're growing or where we see a huge need. And then lastly, we had to just reevaluate our onboarding process. We were bringing in so many people quickly that we weren't orientating them to the culture, and we weren't giving them the tools and resources to be successful quickly as they onboarded. And so we found that they were leaving, within that first 30 to 90 days.
You certainly have a lot of expertise in this space. I'm sure there's people listening to this that could absolutely use those services. Let's talk a little bit about fractional HR. And is this like a growing trend? Is this something that's moving in this direction? I'm just interested. So many companies have these really large HR organizations. And you would think from a fractional perspective, maybe it's more of a just-in-time need or service. It might depend on the company or the solutions needed and things like that. What's your take on, like, why fractional work, and specifically in the HR space, is taking off, and where this is going forward?
Yeah. So I think it's a couple things. One is it is doubling. So it's doubled in the last 2 years. The fractional space has doubled in HR. So there is a growing opportunity. It's not just a fad as we would look at it. And I believe the need comes down to a couple things. There are people in this space that are saying, I'm willing to do the work, right? I'm really excited. I want to work with multiple companies. I want to make a greater impact. So you're getting people with my experience, 20 plus years, going into companies and saying, I can make a difference. Understand you can't hire a full-time person, maybe don't have the need, can't afford it, but I want your expertise. I think that's part of it. I also think there's a growing need from a compliance perspective around what states and the government are requiring of businesses. And so at times it can be harder for businesses and founders, if you think about it, to do everything and wear all the hats. And if they can identify, HR being one of their areas where they can invest in that fractional, they're going to get a bang for their buck, and they're going to actually be able to focus on what they're meant to do, which is grow that business and the passion and the expertise that they started it with.
Our business leaders and founders nodding their head as they hear that. That sounds like a really great solution. And obviously, you want to keep those costs down, especially as you're growing. So I think that could be a really, really good option. Another thing you're really passionate about is just working with professional women around balancing their career, home life, personal well-being. I imagine, is this something that you went through personally? How did you first recognize this issue? And then why is this something you're so passionate about?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for asking. So it actually, I am the living specimen or example of this. Is I burned out in my 30s. And it was, raising kids and then continuing to want to build a career. I'm a very motivated person that wanted to reach the top spot in my career, which was CHRO. But through that process, I burnt out because it wasn't taking care of myself and I was giving to everyone, my career, my kids, my husband, my family, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And so I have a huge passion in helping women really understand that they can still achieve those dreams, but they really need to do some work on themselves. They need to change their mindset. And I help them with empowering themselves. I give them tools and I really help them still have a career that they want, but also be the wife and the mom that they want to be to their family as well. And then also take care of themselves. So it's not at the expense of themselves. And so I do one-on-one coaching with women, understand their biggest challenges and give them those tools and support. And honestly, the biggest part is to have the belief in themselves before they believe themselves. I had a coach that said, I'm going to believe in you because I know right now you don't. And I'm going to hold that belief until you believe in yourself. And that was significant in regards to the change that I made. It has brought me to where I am today.
I love that. That's great advice. So here's what I'll ask you. I want you to be comfortable sharing this, but there might be some people listening to this that are like, I'm not sure if I'm burnout. I can't tell. So was there a specific moment like where one day you came home and like everything was on fire or you looked in the mirror? Like, can you bring us into that moment when you realized you needed to make a change just in case someone else is going through that? They can maybe understand or empathize if they're at that spot.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple and maybe in each of those spaces. So the first part was I felt like I was short with my kids all the time. Like I was always going off on them. I couldn't hold my patience and I really couldn't give them the space. I realized I also wasn't being attentive. I was multitasking. And so when they wanted my attention, I was on my phone or on my computer and I wasn't present. I felt like my marriage had some of the similar strains and issues in it. The other piece was at work. I was drowning. I was always drowning and trying to please everybody, and I couldn't get everything done. And I never felt fulfilled in the work that I was doing. And then lastly, I was exhausted from a health perspective. I wasn't sleeping. I was gaining weight. Women's bodies change a lot as they get into their late 30s and 40s with perimenopause. We don't talk about that enough. And we don't understand that part of that is the wear and tear we've done on our body and we aren't taking care of ourselves. So if you're feeling any of those things or even one of them, you're probably, struggling with burnout. And I do focus on moms and in corporate America, but this can happen to women that work in the home because they take on so much at home as well. And to not doesn't have to be someone that just, leaves the home for work or has that outside job. It can happen in any space when you're trying to be all things to all people.
Super powerful. I really appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable with us. And what we'll do is we'll include your information in the show notes. So then if somebody's listening to this and they feel like they're in there, we'll have them reach out directly and maybe there's something you can do to help there. And I really, really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you, Oz. I
All
appreciate
right.
that.
We got hiring because it's an area that, you've built your career. It's a big part of HR, and talent acquisition plays a huge role in a company's success. And of course, it's an area that I'm super passionate about. So I'm just interested. Let's start here. If we had to come up with a core hiring philosophy for you, whether it be for your team or for the organizations you work with, well, what comes to mind when I ask you that?
Yeah, when I think about that, what I'm looking for in people is I'm looking for that character, the potential, and the values. In my mind, skills and even specific experience in industry can be taught. There's so many times I've worked for companies and we get really hung up on hiring someone with a specific industry experience, and we find out then we haven't hired the right person, and it works against us. And now I want to say we're stuck with someone who maybe isn't a right for the role. And for sure, when you're looking at people in leadership positions that are leading other people and leading large businesses, it can make a big significant negative impact on the business if we don't have the right person in that role.
Yeah. What are some of the key leadership qualities you're looking for if you're interviewing somebody that's going to have a big business unit under them or a big team under them? What are the characteristics you think make a great leader?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is like being humble. Like, are you humble in regards to what, are you listening to people? How about that authenticity and transparency, right? Are you showing up consistently with the people that you have? Are you someone who's willing to ask for help and not someone who thinks you have all the answers and recognizing that you're better as a team with the people around you? Leaning in and listening. So are you someone who comes into a new role or a new company and you're kind of like a bull in a china shop? Or are you going to slow down and learn, what's worked, what hasn't worked, who are your strong players, but learn from yourself. Don't just get your, ear filled from your leader or the leaders around you, really building your own opinions about the people that are around you. And I also just think, you have to be someone that people want to follow. Right. So do people respect you? I think something that shows up for me is when a new leader starts an organization, how many people maybe follow them or at least try to follow them? Are they having people that want to come along because they loved working for them at the last organization? And now you've already hired the person, so it's a little harder at that point if you don't see that happening. What do you do for that? But I think you can interview for some of those things when you think about the network and understanding how people have kept their network going and why that's important to them.
It is such an incredible litmus test, and it's so much more than a reference, right? Because with a reference, yeah, they were XYZ and you're on a phone call and, there's not that much on the line. Are you willing to go put your job on the line? Are you willing to go,
Yeah.
I want to go follow this person? I think that is such a really key thing. And all the great leaders I know have people that
Yep.
they've brought with them because they've done so much for them throughout their career that they just couldn't imagine not following them. And you're right, coming up in an interview process, sometimes you might not find that out till late. Maybe there's an opportunity to ask a question around, who are the type of people you'd bring to this organization? Are there people, if I asked you that you've worked with in the past that would be, potential fits that you'd want to work with? Who comes to mind? You don't have to name names, but just I'm trying to get a
Yeah.
sense of that type of thing. I think
Yeah.
that is a really good call out by you. If I ask you about a memorable interview, good, bad, you don't got to name names, but any memorable interviews come to mind?
Well, I got two, which is funny. So I have one as the candidate, and this is one that sticks with me. I won't name the company, but I was asked if I chose to like a pet or an animal that would like represent me. What would I say that the animal was? And so it was such a weird question because you're like, what are they looking for, in this? So I'll tell you, I picked a bird because I had a cockatoo growing up. I've had two in my life. They're so smart. They're dynamic. They're quick thinking, right? So I thought, well, that's a good answer. I mean, I got the job, by the way, but it was such a weird question, and I could never really figure out why he asked me that question, what he was looking for, and it felt like he was looking for something that was like subjective, right? Not really an objective interview question. Um,
I got to laugh here before you get to the second. Do you have anything else on that? I want
no, go
to
ahead.
add in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So my head of HR who's grown up here, she famously asks everybody in an interview, who is your spirit animal? Which may be a different way to
Oh,
frame that, right? Because we're trying to look
okay.
at the qualities of the animal that exhibit you. And we all answered it internally here. And my answer is a wolf. And why I pick a wolf is because comfortable traveling in packs or a lone wolf, right? Leader of the pack a lot of the time. I like to think of myself as a leader. I think I can be domesticated, but also if I need to, I can bare my teeth, right? And sometimes I do my best work at night. So, nocturnal. So that's where I come up with my spirit animal. But I like cockatoo. That's a good answer. I think that you came up with that on the fly. I imagine it stumps a lot of people when they ask that. Again, the key is to ask it in the right way because it obviously left you wondering what were they looking for there. We ask it in a little bit of a different way. And usually it gets a lot of really positive affirmation from it. So we'll have to see. What about the other interview? What's another memorable one?
Well, we've done a lot of video interviewing with the pandemic and having to change a little bit of how we work. I had an individual who I asked 3 or 4 times to turn their video on, and they wouldn't turn it on. It wasn't that they couldn't, they wouldn't turn it on.
Would they
And
say
so
no?
it was,
Not happening?
yeah,
Like, how
he
did they
said,
handle
no,
it?
yeah, I can't, I'm not comfortable on video. I'm not this. And so, I mean, honestly, I went through the interview because you still need to go through your process. But unfortunately, I just felt like it wasn't about what they look like. I mean, there is a level of like hygiene and being presentable that you need. But I just felt that how is this person going to build relationships and interact if they're not willing to turn on their video because their role was going to be working with people. At the company, we did have some requirements to be in the office. It was hybrid, but this role was going to be working with people internationally. And so I just felt like I have to build relationships.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I don't see how
I
it's
am big on
possible you
turning on
could
my
hire a
video.
person that didn't turn on their video in the interview, no matter how great of an interviewer they are. I don't see how that makes any sense. If you're getting that in the interview, for me, it's like, just don't even take the interview if you can't do that. I don't know if it was somebody, and I don't want to generalize, but maybe like a Gen Z or early on in their career. I was doing some reading about how, when you call somebody in Gen Z, they don't say hello right away. Or maybe if they're like in customer service, like they don't say hello right away. And because it's just different like social cues and different like awareness. And I don't know if that has to do with screens or things like that. But here's what I gotta say. Gen Z or not Gen Z, human context, social cues, self-awareness, putting on your video, having energy, those types of things, they always play. Even in the age of AI, those things are always going to be important. In fact, they might become more important. That's pretty crazy. So I'm guessing that person didn't move on to the next interview. Is that a fair assumption?
No, they didn't. And I will just acknowledge the generational differences, because I have a couple teenagers myself, and I'm really trying to work with them on how they approach conflict, how they use technology, how they write emails, because of the fact that there is definitely, I'm seeing a difference in regards to what they kind of tend to want to do based on how they interact with friends or how they use the short form, words or to communicate back and forth. Sometimes I'm like, what do you mean here? What is this?
Yeah. So listen, I'll tell you something funny. I have 4 kids, and my oldest is 14. And right now she's interning during the summer for 4 weeks at MSH. And every Monday morning we have like a company-wide meeting. There's probably like 100 plus people on this call. And we like talk about different things like what's going on in the business and things like that. And whenever we have somebody new, we ask them, hey, how was your first week? Or tell us some things about yourself, and kind of put them on, put on the spot is the wrong way, but we want to make sure people are able to kind of learn and share and be able to present. Well, of course, I bring my 14-year-old into this situation, and she's no different. So I'm asking her, okay, it was your first week last week? And what did you learn? And at first she was a little bit nervous. She was a little bit tired, not used to waking up this early with her summer vacation. But she got into the flow, and really I feel grateful that I had this opportunity to put her in these scenarios where she's having to talk in front of a bunch of people and put herself out there. And whether she stumbles now or not is not really the point. It's important to put them in these scenarios so that over time they get more comfortable. And I got to give her credit. She's done pretty good so far. So I'm going to keep doing it.
Proud dad moment. That's amazing.
Proud dad moment. She's going to do a presentation at the end of the internship in front of the whole company. So I'll let you know how that goes.
That's amazing.
Finding the right talent for your team doesn't have to be a struggle. Meet Aon Hire, the world's first hiring experience management platform designed to transform the way you hire. Powered by AI, Aon Hire takes the hassle out of every step in the process. From smart resume analysis to customized interview questions, it saves you time, money, and effort. Plus, with real-time insights from every interview, you can quickly identify top candidates, reduce turnover, and stay on budget. And forget about note-taking, Aon Hire takes care of that for you. Ready to revolutionize your hiring process? Visit aonhire.com and get started today.
What about questions in terms of interview questions that you might like to ask? Are there any favorite ones?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and I've had different reactions to it, but I'm asking the interviewer, tell me about a time that you received hard feedback. Because I think it's important to understand, have they gotten hard feedback? Because most people, I shouldn't say that. Most people should have gotten it, not because they're not good, but because if they're asking for it and they're really pushing for, I want honest feedback, we should all be getting it. No one's perfect. And so it's interesting to kind of see what is their reaction to it? What shows up for self-awareness, emotional intelligence. So it gives me a couple cues in regards to, do they have growth mindset? It helps me understand how they've handled it, because most of the time, hey, I got hard feedback. They're going to also want to close the loop to say, I acknowledged it and here are the changes I made. Because usually hard feedback, it's hard to hear, but it also isn't some of the most positive reflections of ourselves, likely. And so then we're going to say, what can they do with that feedback? So that's a staple that I use in conversations with people.
It's really hard. I mean, as somebody that believes that not giving feedback to people in your organization is selfish, or more, you want to be more well-liked, and you're willing to try to make things better. As somebody that wants even the earliest people in the organization to give me feedback if they see it and feel it. Even sometimes when I still get feedback, I still I have to talk myself through and be like, yep, this is what you wanted. This is what you asked for. Deep breath. Okay. Thank you for your feedback. It's hard. It's not easy. It's never easy to hear something that you need to get better at. But the way I tell people to handle it is number one, understand the intent, right? Is this somebody that's trying to bring you down? Right? Yep. Or is it somebody that's trying to help? Right? Because that's a big deal. That intent is there, right? I think the other side of it is you don't have to take every feedback, right? Sometimes people might have a different perception because things are, so you have to know what to, throw out and say, okay, maybe they just caught me in a bad timing and that this, or I need to think on this. And that's why I always talk about collecting data points, right? Because what I'll try not to do, if somebody shows up late for the first time, I'm going to try to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, well, maybe this is just a scenario that came up. But if they're late a second time and a third time, now I can start to drive some sort of relevance. Okay, same thing with feedback. Okay. If you're getting
Yep.
some consistent feedback from different sources, that's a pretty good sign that you need to take a look in the mirror. But that doesn't make it easy. But if you take it right and you use it, it can be something that can really turbocharge your career and take you to the next step. Because it's, hopefully, if you're in the right environment, you're going to get it, because it's much better to get that than have people talking behind closed doors about what you need to get better at, right?
Yep. And I do it at home too. I mean, this isn't just a work thing. Like, I am really humble and vulnerable with my kids when I do stuff. I open the door to have them give me feedback. We talk about it. I encourage my husband, my parents. Like, truly believe in that growth mindset, and that if you get comfortable in that uncomfortableness, you're going to be better as a person, but as a leader in all the different spaces of your life.
Same page, 100% same page. Okay. So what about when you miss on somebody? Because we've all looked back and there's been hires that we wish we could redo. Do you find that maybe there's a theme, or maybe there were some biases you had early in your career that you had to work beyond? Well, what might be a theme of when you miss on somebody, why that happens?
Yeah. Where I have found that I have missed is because I've really, fallen in love with a experience that they've had, or we've connected early on in the interview. And I've missed on, like, whether it's like a culture fit, or are they really able to adapt, right? So if you look at someone and maybe they've got specific industries or types of roles or companies they've been in, and you don't dig far enough into, can they adapt in these different types of companies? I might have different expectations or things I need. And then I find out later that, gosh, I missed on that. And so what I've had to do is really learn to slow down first, but then also secondly, like, listen when we're doing a debrief session, listen to the other people and what they're saying about that. There have been a couple of people I've gone back and re-interviewed, depending on the role. If I'm a hiring manager or I'm the key HR leader to that hire, I've gone back and actually done another interview to see, did I really miss that? Or was there just lack of consistency in how they showed up in the interview? Or were we really not on the same page in what we were looking for as an interview team?
By the way, I find that. And so listen, we have software that we built here to kind of create the ultimate hiring process and help people have the best practices that you see at the FANGs and some of the companies that are doing it best. And one of the things I highly recommend is, especially a hiring manager, you should be early in the interview process, right? But then to your point, I think there's so much value of being later in the process, having heard feedback from different people, getting those things addressed before making the final offer. And it also serves as a kind of, if you're really interested in the person, a final sales point too, of like, hey, this is what I have in mind for you. Now that you've gone through the process, what have you heard? What might be red flags for you? Highly recommend that. I agree with you. Not everybody can interview multiple times in a process, obviously, but as the manager, or if you're a key HR leader, I think it's really key to take that information that you got early in the process and during the process and be able to apply it later on. I love that feedback. That is awesome.
Yeah, and I would agree with you just on the hiring manager. If you're the hiring manager, you should do, the recruiter would do the pre-selection and then give you those people. You do the first interview and then you're one of the last again because of what you just said, right? Where is things consistent through the process, but it's the selling. We have to remember as hiring managers, it's not just, are we making the selection? These individuals also are choosing between potentially multiple offers, for sure, if they're good. And so we have to be selling. We can't just think that it's our decision if they get the job or not.
Spot on. Okay, if you could flip your fingers or snap your fingers and fix something in the current hiring process the way it works today, is there anything that in particular frustrates you? Is there any, like, maybe it's technology, maybe it's the time, maybe it's the candidate pool? Like, what's something that maybe you would fix on the hiring process if you could wave a magic wand?
It's such a good question. I don't know if I have a clear fix, but I'll tell you what it is. It's a couple things really, but I think that there are times where we miss amazing candidates in the process, whether it's allowing like the ATS or too much of the AI to filter out people based on keywords. So I do think we lose amazing people. And then I think we lose amazing people that don't interview well, but could be really great workers. And so how do we create a selection process that doesn't, we have to interview them. They have to answer the questions. But we also hire people that maybe make it through the whole process, interview amazing, and are a great fit for that. And so it's like, what is the fix to say that you don't either hire the wrong person or you miss the great people? Again, I don't think I have the answer here, but I do think that there's some opportunity in our hiring processes to make sure that we have a right fit for that role, and that we aren't also leaving, let's say, things on the table that could be, or people ultimately on the table that would be great for the role.
I love that you said that. So here's the thing. So I told you that, we have the software that we're building right now. Right now, we're focused on the interviewing process and hiring experience, because that's the first touch of a potential employee. Then we're moving into the onboarding and team building aspect of it, and eventually that first year experience. But eventually I want to move to the individual, because I totally agree with you. If you think about it, the qualities that get people hired a lot of the time are how are you in interviewing and what does your resume look like, right? Those are the heuristics that we usually have to deal with. And no matter how diligent you are in an interview process, those are kind of the key focuses. And by the way, there is not a one-to-one correlation between how you do those two things and how you'll perform in a job, particularly in certain jobs, right? I'll just generalize real quick, like a software engineer, right? Software engineer might be brilliant and amazing, but maybe they're not the best interview, right? Or maybe they're early in their career and don't have a ton of great experience yet. But if you know how to suss that out, if you know how to do due diligence and find kind of the diamond in the rough there and look beyond kind of the aesthetic or the ability to talk, right? I think you're going to find a lot of really quality people that fit roles more than you think. So I totally agree with you. And that's why I think there's ripe for change right now, because I don't think a 3 to 4 interview process is the best way to determine who's the best fit for a role. I think now with technology and different things that are out there, we can really improve upon that. So same page. And it's starting to come down in South Florida. So you might be seeing the rain.
Yeah, I did. It got really dark behind you.
Welcome to summer in South Florida. It rains every day here. Okay, let's talk AI, because I brought that up. You brought that up. How do you see AI shaping the HR function going forward? Are there any tools or technologies you're seeing right now that you're pretty interested in? What do you see in this space?
Yeah, I think it's such a great way to enhance the work that we do. I mean, I'm a big fan of AI. I use it in so many different parts of my life. I don't see that, it necessarily replaces people altogether. I do think there's going to be a change in the way we work. So if we take a look at tactical or repetitive work that we can, replace or do something different with from a technology, AI being one. I think there's also a way that we can be more attentive to our employee base by using AI for chat and answering simple questions where employees maybe are looking for something really quickly. My last organization, we centralized a lot of our, like you call it an employee call center for HR, and we were working through an HR transformation. It was really hard for the business because we were pulling people out of the plants and putting them into a centralized group, but they were leveraging technology to really help enhance that experience. And we were getting really good feedback on it. So I think there's a huge opportunity in how we use that. I've seen it, as we mentioned, in the applicant tracking system. So in how you were leveraging, screening resumes and opportunities like that. I've seen a lot in regards to how we connect systems so that systems work more quickly and provide a better employee experience for employees that maybe aren't part of the same system. There's a lot of opportunity in that as well. So you have a seamless experience for employees.
I love that answer. I think at the end of the day, whether you're an employee or you're a customer, you want to feel seen, you want to feel heard. And the irony is, through technology, we can offer a lot more of that. There's sometimes there's too much going on. Like you talked about being burned out. You're trying to serve all these different masters and make everybody happy. It can be tough to prioritize and manage your time. So you give each team member, each employee, particularly in HR, that time to be heard. I do think through AI, through the right use of AI, because again, I don't think it should be replacing human interaction, but I do think that there's ways that little things, small things, interaction points that we can really improve the touch points there. And I do think as the technology gets better and better and more conversational, it's going to be, it can be a good replacement when you don't have that time, and they can demand the follow-up after the fact. So I love that. You mentioned that you've been using AI. I'd love to know in your personal life or any aspect, like how are you using it? Give us a use case on how it's working for you.
Yeah. I mean, so a couple of really cool examples were, I wanted this one recipe. I couldn't remember what the food, like what was everything in it. I knew that it was for like a slow cooker grill. And I knew it had apple juice and like some type of a liquor that you would put on it with some seasoning. I knew that I only had so much time to make it because, I had a short window. So I put all of that in it. I said the seasonings that I had on hand, and it put together a recipe for me that I could use to make it. It was perfect. Another way that I've been using is like for health changes, like, okay, I'm going to be traveling for work this week. I'm not going to be able to get to the gym. The hotel gym has these weights. Give me a workout that I can use. That's been a great one as well. I used it to plan our vacation to Hawaii in March, which was amazing. So I gave it all the different things that I had heard from different people and had it put together like a light agenda or itinerary for us that we could take a look at and at least reference on our vacation. I've used it to help respond to emails. Like if I'm trying to figure out what do I say after a networking event to someone, how do I put together all of my thoughts? So I'll usually draft something so it's still in my authentic voice, but then it will polish it up for me. That's been super helpful. So I think there's so much opportunity in how we use it. I just love it.
Great use cases. I'll tell you one that I had the other day. So I actually was lucky enough to be invited to interview on a show. And, it's not easy being on live TV. You want to make sure you do a good job. And I had a drive from Orlando back to my office in Fort Lauderdale to do the show. And what I did was I said, hey, I want you to be this interviewer. And on this show, and these are the frame of questions that I want. And I just want you to throw a bunch of questions at me and then walk me through my answers and tell me how you would improve them so I could prepare. So I literally, instead of listening to a podcast or some music on my ride home, I went back and forth and chat. And it really helped me clarify my thoughts and helped me get to a really good point. And there was some, hey, take some ums out of this and maybe hit this point more concisely or use this word instead of this. That really helped, which is amazing, right? It was almost like I had my own personal, coach in the car with me, right? Helping. So listen, AI, it's here whether you like it or not. I think it's better to accept and embrace it and find out what it can do for you rather than putting your head in the sand. So I think we're on the same page about that. Great use cases by you, Nicki. Thanks for sharing. Okay. Yeah. Let's ask this. Do you have a good book you'd recommend or maybe a piece of content that you've seen recently that you want to tell our listeners about?
Yeah, I'm guessing others have mentioned it, but I really like Mel Robbins' Let Them theory. I mean, that has been just transformational. I've done a couple things over the years, like Sean Aker has a Happiness Advantage book, and he focuses on choosing happiness today. Don't keep pushing that success factor out. And I was a trainer for a number of years at Andersen doing that, and it was transformational in my life. And I thought that Mel Robbins' Let Them book was like the next iteration of that for me, which was like, how do you have this let them? Because, she did the podcast and everyone learned about let them. Then she wrote the book and it was let them, let me. And that was the part that I thought resonated was, what am I going to do differently then in that? I'm not just going to, say, oh, let them. They didn't get invited to something, let them. No, then what am I going to do from that I think has been really great. So I like Mel. I like her podcast, but that book really, I think was a great tool that people can use personally and professionally. It also gave some hints and ideas around like raising adult children and things that you could do with your adult children to that space, which I haven't have a senior in high school this year and I'm really leaning into that space around how to, be parenting an adult child here soon.
No, well, send those notes over. I might need to listen to that podcast. I know exactly where you're at right now. That's amazing. Okay. Last question before we get to our lightning round. If you had to give yourself, 20-year-old self, some advice that you didn't know then, but that you know now, it could be personal, it could be professional. What advice would you give 20-year-old Nicki?
Oh, gosh. I think it's going to go back to what we talked about with taking better care of myself, not burning out. I put so much into wanting to have this corporate career that I don't think fulfilled me and paid me back in the way that I wanted. And I don't regret anything that I did in regards to raising my girls, but I do think I missed maybe some opportunities to build memories or to be present with them that I do feel like I'm taking advantage of now. And so I think what I would tell her is, take better care of yourself, enjoy the ride, be present, and you're going to have to make, hard choices. You're going to have to put up some barriers or some, like expectations of yourself and from others. And I think maybe breaking up with people pleasing earlier in my career would have been a good idea as well.
Fantastic. Really good advice. All right, we're going to move to our lightning round. You don't know what questions are coming, but are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, let's start here. Favorite food to eat at Applebee's when you're off your shift?
Ooh, I'm going to go with their boneless buffalo wings.
Boneless buffalo wings.
Yeah.
Biggest tip you ever got?
Oh gosh, $100.
What did you do differently? Why do you think that happened?
Well, and here's the thing. I would say it was $100 on a $20 tab. So maybe $100 because when you had larger, I think it was what you had mentioned earlier. It was like leaning in on the experience to the person, like being present for them. I think we had a couple conversations as well. It didn't run away from the table. I leaned in. They were a single person. It was late night. I think they came in for some type of wings and something and a beer. It wasn't big, but you could just tell that person wanted a connection. And I leaned in on that and they appreciated it.
Love that. Love that. I have a similar story. I got $100 tips when you have smaller tabs that can really be mean something that you did great work. All right. You live in Minneapolis, right?
Yep.
Favorite part about living in Minneapolis?
I think just the lakes. I mean, you can be downtown in 30 minutes or I can be on a lake in 30 minutes. Like, it doesn't matter where I'm at. We just have so much opportunity here to enjoy the space around us. For me personally, really enjoy nature. So being able to go downtown for a walk in Minneapolis or head out to the country and everything's so available to you.
The Travel and Tourism Board of the Twin Cities is just elated right now that you said that. They're excited to get more people into the city. What's your favorite restaurant in Minneapolis? The one you'd recommend to friends coming to visit for one night?
Ooh, good one. Lolo. So they've got locations in Stillwater and Hudson, Wisconsin, just across the border. And it's like a craft restaurant. So they've got, really good tacos, bowls, and they've got craft drinks. Definitely a place to check out.
Big craft drink guy. Last question. What are you most excited to do on your upcoming trip to Hawaii?
Ooh, I want to see the volcano because all of the volcanoes have that main volcano on there has been seeing lots of videos. So I'm hoping it's still open and can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I recently went on a trip with family where I got to see Pompeii, and it was pretty fantastic to see the volcanoes and the power of them and the magnitude of that. It is going to be a great trip. You been to Hawaii before?
No, we are first time.
Oh, you're gonna love it. I don't know how any work gets done out there. It's just like the whole vibe is relaxing. You get off the plane, smells like sugar. I mean, it is such a fantastic place. Most beautiful place we have in the U.S. No question in my mind. Nicki,
Cool.
I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much for the time. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I know I did.
Thank you, Oz. Appreciate the opportunity and best to you.
All right, next time I'm in Minneapolis, we're going to Lolo's.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, see you later.
See ya.